Hello, welcome to Wardrobe School. I'm Vanya. Here's where you learn about upcycling and sustainable clothing, right? So in this video, we're gonna talk about what can you do to help your selling business, your reselling clothing business do even better, right? Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel, give a like. It doesn't cost you anything, just give me a little help. And then I'll start sharing a bunch of tips with you that's gonna help you explode your reselling business, all right? So when you sell clothing, either vintage or you just resell clothing, like, you know, that you thrift and you sell online or at local markets or something, you are probably worried about your competition, right? And you also feel like, how can you scale this? How can it be bigger? Because I've sold a lot of clothing before, and I know how it feels like that you're already working so much and you don't know where can you go further to make more profits or grow your business, right? Since it's like one of a kind and it's kind of hard to grow really, right? Also, like, there's a competition now, especially after the pandemic. A lot of people started reselling clothing, especially vintage. Like, the young people are really doing it, which is amazing because we really need that for the environment and all. But then you're like, oh my God, there's so many competition. And if you've been in this business before for a while, now you see the young kids coming with all the strangest stuff that they like. And so you get a little worried, right? And look, I have friends who decides to start selling vintage clothing, and they just go and they buy whatever they think it's vintage and they try to sell, and not necessarily sells, because, you know, you have to have some sort of style. I've been in this market for a long time. I've been selling vintage clothing for 15 years at least in New York, and, you know, and online. And the thing that I see the most is just people who don't know and don't have style, and the ones that do really well are usually the ones that have a style, have a very good sense of branding, and they go for a specific types of clothing when they shop, and that makes their store or online store or anything to stand out. So that makes people be interested in it, in their stuff, right? And that's what I want to share with you today, what you can do to reach that point, because then you can stand out from the competition, create your own brand, and not worry much, and then be able to scale. Because honestly, like, you can't just be always just like going through rags of clothing, picking the ones, and think about the sizes of vintage clothing. It's so specific, right? Because one piece that has to fit that one person that like. So what can you do to make that like sort of like multiples of that, and also to make more interesting, right? And also avoiding being dated, right? A lot of clothing sellers I see, they have those dated stuff, especially like, in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of clothing, right? Look, those like polyester, like stiff stuff. That's kind of cool. Some of them are really cool, in my opinion. At least I like, the style, but there's so much out there that's hard to sell so much of that, because it's a specific type of style and clothing that not everyone likes, right? So what can you do? And one thing you can do is to upcycle stuff, because that will make your brand have a style. It's branding really, right? So when you take some stuff and refashion them, not only you are recycling, which is amazing, but you're also creating your own face, your own style. So, and also you can make multiples, right? Think about it. When you have shirts, for instance, this shirt that I'm wearing, it's a vintage shirt. I'm not going to cut it or anything because I like it, but I could definitely like grab many different shirts and then make tank tops, for instance. I've done that. So I would take like a bunch of men's silk shirts, those like groovy prints and stuff, and transform them into tank tops and have them and make them in different sizes, because even though they're going to be different, but then there's some sort of line of pieces that when the customer comes to shop, they see it and they're like, oh, okay, what size is this? Do you have a different size? And it's not exact identical piece. It might have a different print, a different sort of material even sometimes, but it's within that idea, and then it sells better than if I had only one tank top that I found vintage. So I like to mix those things. And for upcycling, you not necessarily need to be like super pro at sewing. And if you know some sewing, I do have this program called Remakers where we recycle one project a month. And if you want to join, the link is here. It's not always open for enrollment, but you can join the waiting list. I also have another small program that is just like to get started with upcycling. I'll also link below here so you can find out, okay? It's called Upcycling Fantastic. And anyway, if you're really good at sewing, awesome. Or if you have a seamstress to help you, also very good. You can do like different things and very cool things. But if you're not, that's fine. If you're starting out, if you are just, you know, a little bit of sewing, you can still upcycle. You can still get pieces and transform into something else by a few changings, okay? So there are different processes that you can do, different projects and, you know, changes on the clothing that will make it new again, right? Even honestly, like I've done so many, I sold like thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of clothing that are upcycled. And many of them were just like by cropping the hem sometimes, because anything you do on a piece of clothing will change and will bring it, for some reason, makes like new and fresh again, even if it's a little changing, and people, you know, it grabs their attention again. So it's worth changing a little bit. So you can just like do a hem, you know, sometimes it's long sleeve and you make the sleeve short, or it's a shirt and then you make a tank top, or it's a two pieces and then you join them together and make a dress, or it's a dress and you split them apart and then you have a skirt and a top. Sometimes it's a dress with like a very ugly top part or have issues like stains or something, and then you go and crop it and then it's just a skirt and you sell the skirt. Or you can do embroidery, you can print on those pieces, you can do many different things that will create your brand and not have like a boring piece anymore. And then people will know you for that, especially if you're on social media. You know that style, sometimes you can go viral and then everyone's gonna come back, and next time they see another piece that you made, they recognize it, and that's how your brand starts to be created, right? So upcycling, in my opinion, is the best solution for clothing resellers that wanted to stand out and create, you know, new pieces, create a brand, and maybe from there you can even become a fashion designer. You can even like create a clothing line for real, you know. That's how I started. I started just like recycling. I would buy pieces by the pound and then transform them, and then eventually I had a store and I had another store, and now I just sell online. But you know, that's how I did it, because when you realize and the last thing I'm gonna say is, when you do this way, you learn what kind of pieces sell better. You know, say for instance, this tank top that I'm telling you, right? Like when I would buy a bunch of shirts and then transform into tank top, and into tank tops in different sizes. And I realized those tank tops were selling very well. What did I do? I made those from scratch. Then you can buy fabric, even recycled fabric, right? You know, you can buy yardage from places that are sustainable and all, or from thrift stores. And then I made tank tops from, you know, those fabrics, but still then there was like more multiples of the same one, because I already tested that design. I tested that idea on just thrifted shirts, which is cheaper to take the risk, right? Instead of just like ordering like 200 pieces from a factory or something that I'm not sure if it's gonna sell or not. So to have a sustainable brand, if you are starting from zero, that's the best way to do. If you're a reseller and you wanna go that route, right? And even if you don't wanna do this way, you can just add some pieces to your booth or to your store that are upcycled, because then it has the handmade feel, and then you know how people feel like that you care more. You're not just another boring vintage seller. All right, I hope that helps. Please subscribe and leave in the comments what you think of it. How, you know, give ideas, share ideas as well, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them.